Really happy to come and do this.
Oh, thank you.
And not in a math mood.
We don't need
30
no
seconds.
All right, here
education.
we go.
I think that was the theme of yesterday's Todd Allbaugh show.
Hey, teacher.
We're gonna continue that with breaking news today.
Oh my gosh, breaking news.
Dun, dun, dun. Breaking news with Todd Allbaugh. That's what we do. We break news here.
In the news.
Or the wind, depending on the moment.
From the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock on this Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite, and it is
Hump Day.
Yes, indeed. Made it halfway through the week. Glad to have you along. Little rain outside hitting the windows here at the world headquarters of Civic Media in downtown Madison. People have their umbrellas up, or as they say in Bohemian, bumper shoots. Do you know that, Sommers? That is the word.
Hold on. What? Can you run that by me again?
That is Bohemian word for umbrella, bumper shoot.
Bumper shoe?
Yeah, I don't know why. My grandmother was Bohemian, and so she knew a few words. That's one of the ones that stuck with me. Anyway, the show will be in English today because we're under ice control now. There'll be no Bohemian spoken here furthermore on the show. But we are going to be joined in hour number 2 at 3:35 by our friend and colleague Earl Ingram Jr. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. Is 1 year ago that Earl and I were up in Baraboo, Wisconsin on a similar day, actually, a rainy day, celebrating the first annual Juneteenth celebration in Baraboo. It was a really good time. Earl and I also afterwards hiked around Devil's Lake a little bit. So we'll check in with Earl Ingram and his remembrances of Juneteenth. It also is happening in Milwaukee, one of the largest Juneteenth celebrations happening tomorrow, which Earl's going to be a part of. So we'll check in with him. Also in hour 2, what's worse? People who are critical of others or people who are not critical of others. God bless you.
Gesundheit.
That's hour 2, but right now we're joined, you heard him sneeze in, by our guests as they are every Wednesday afternoon from our nation's capital outside in the Tony suburbs of Arlington. The former Republican like myself and now a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project, Trygve Olsen, and from beautiful Lake Wissota, the Captain Stubing of the Northwoods and the host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow every morning from 6 until 8. Pat Kreitlow, for those watching on the stream, he has the hat. He has his captain's hat right there. I love it.
Does not fit over my headset, unfortunately. Bumbershoot is a slightly whimsical American term for an umbrella, thought to be a playful combination of umbrella and parachute. Yeah. So there you go.
It came from, I guess it came from a Bohemian.
I searched Bohemia, and there was no Bohemia anywhere.
Really?
It's just a
Maybe
thing.
my grandma lied to me.
Well, no, because I think Bohemian has also become kind of a catch-all for American mutts. We are all in the junk drawer of cultures, as it were.
Right,
So,
right. I appreciate that.
So you
Thank
get away with
gentlemen.
that. You bet.
Good to see you both here after a week. Lots going on nationally, lots going on in the state. I'd like to start, if we could, and we've been talking about this for the last couple of days, what's going on a block away in the Wisconsin State Capitol as the Joint Committee on Finance, better known as JFC, the Joint Finance Committee, the largest. It's the budget writing committee, the most powerful committee in the state capitol. They put together the budget every other year, and then they send it to the full legislature. If it passes, it goes to the governor for an up or down vote. Important to remember for our discussion that unlike in D.C., if there is no budget, the government shuts down. In Wisconsin, if there is no budget passed or agreed upon by the legislature or the governor, the current budget takes effect. In other words, the current spending levels just carry on for another 2 years. So I want to go to this new news being reported right now by the Wisconsin State Journal great reporter Kimberly Wethall in a new in their online edition at Madison.com this afternoon just posted here about an hour ago. It's an update on the story that they ran this morning on the front page. It starts out, Republicans in the legislature's budget committee may deal the universities of Wisconsin, better known as the UW system, its biggest budget cut in nearly a decade to the tune of $87 million. And many thanks to Kimberly for the next line there on the front page of today's State Journal. It says, the cut was first reported by Civic Media on Monday night. By contrast, the UW system had requested an increase in state aid of $856 million. The committee had been slated to take up the UW system's budget yesterday, but punted it for unspecified reasons. Going to step away from the story right now. Maybe some of those unspecified reasons was the post that we did on Monday night that got a lot of people calling their legislators, and they kind of said, well, boys, the jig's up, and so they took it off the agenda for yesterday. State Senator Kelda Royce, who was on the program on Monday, talked about this a little bit. She confirmed to both the State Journal and the Associated Press that she had heard rumors of that $87 million number herself. Yet last night, this morning, State Assembly Speaker Robin Vos was couching it a little bit in terms of, well, my caucus is in favor of that number, but they wouldn't say what a lot more. Now, the State Journal and Kimberly Wethall are reporting the following, quote, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, Republican of Rochester, confirmed today that Republicans were looking at least a cut of that size because he said the UW system had not done enough to ensure conservative students feel like they belong on campus. Voss also said he believed too much, quote, political correctness, unquote, remained on campus and alluded to the pro-Palestinian protests that had taken place in the last 2 years. Going to step away from the story. Pat Kreitlow, former Democratic state senator. Thoughts?
Thoughts begin with the word Taliban-esque, because that's exactly where Robin Vos is, and he's comfortable in that role of being the thought police for the University of Wisconsin and for students who attend there. And his idea is not about stifling anybody's speech, but he can stifle their money. And if he cuts enough of their money with demands that they adhere to his way of thinking, Taliban-esque is the word that fits there. And he goes on to say in this article, it's not about cutting money. It's about getting some kind of reforms to the broken process we currently have. The part of the system that's broken begins and ends with Robin Vos and all of his ilk in the Wisconsin legislature who don't believe in the Wisconsin idea the way that you were describing it yesterday, and who would just as soon micromanage the universities the way that they're trying to micromanage local units of government, women's bodies, and so on.
Trivia Olson, you and I have traveled around the state here, stopping at a lot of our great public universities at UW System. Pat knows this as well. We're all three products of UW System schools and colleges. What about this, what Pat said here? The quote from Voss in this story today in the State Journal this morning says, it's not about cutting money. What it's about is getting some kind of reforms to broken processes that we currently have. We don't have enough respect for political diversity. And it goes on from there. Trivy, are we seeing Voss trying to mimic what Trump is doing in D.C., which is we're going to make these kind of egregious, over-the-top demands, in this case cutting $87 million from UW system current levels, which would gut almost assuredly close the remaining 6 two-year colleges and probably shut down at least one four-year school, if Todd could get it out. But is he doing this? He's saying it's not about money. Is this a mimic of what Trump's doing in D.C.?
Could I go a step further and ask Trigvi to also say, does it go as far as what Viktor Orban is doing has done in Hungary?
You guys are loading up on me, man.
You're the expert, man.
Right? You've actually fought authoritarianism. He fought authoritarianism, and he won.
Let me unpack this in a few different ways. First of all, I'm a little perplexed because by Robin's quotes. If you guys know, listeners may not, I've known Robin since high school. In college, Robin was the first student regent. There were 3 candidates. me, Robin, and one other guy. I didn't really care because if I became the student regent, it was going to be less time on Water Street drinking beer and chasing girls.
You're a good man.
So we ultimately came to a conclusion, though. It was going to be the UW-Madison kid if Robin and I, as the state school kids, didn't have one candidate.
Robin Voss.
Robin Voss has been more engaged in the UW system over a longer period of time than perhaps anyone in the state other than Tommy Thompson, going back to college when he was the student regent. He represents, I believe, Whitewater. And
Yes,
he's putting out this balder. My question is, if it's this bad, Robin, what in the H double hockey sticks have you been doing since we were in college? What have you been doing? And yes, it is sort of Orban-esque. Quite frankly, it's just abject stupidity in many ways. And as I said before, the University of Wisconsin River Falls is not a woke den of indoctrination. I doubt that Robin Voss thinks that Whitewater is a woke den of intolerance towards conservatism. In fact, when we were on the Stevens Point campus, Students for Liberty and about 4 other conservative groups all had tables up, for God's sakes. Like, man, what are you talking about, Robin? And where have two people like you and I gone so off in opposite directions about what the school, what the Wisconsin idea and what Wisconsin is about? Or are you just paying lip service because you want to be and are afraid of what it means if you don't go along with the lie? What is up? Sorry, you cranked me up, but I just want to know what.
Great.
I mean, honestly, I wish we were on a podcast because I would unleash expletives, as you know I can, in very unique ways, Todd. But like, what is
Thank you
going
for not
on?
doing it right now. No, this is. I mean, Pat, you represented UW institutions when you're in the state senate. You're a graduate, as Trigby is, of UW Eau Claire. We all know the value. When Trigby and I did the show in Eau Claire, and you were there. I mean. There, again, it's not some wokeness on UW Eau Claire's campus.
No, it's most certainly not. It is, but no different than what Trump is trying to do to Harvard and Columbia. This is all politics. It's just pure politics of grievance, that their only path to staying in power, where they can do things for their wealthy benefactors, is to convince enough of the population that didn't go to college that colleges are these ivory towers, these elite institutions of people who don't think like them. When the folks out there who didn't go to college oftentimes scrimp and save and work hard, you know why? So that their kid can go to college and get an education, or a tech school, or a trade school, or something that maybe they didn't get the chance to do. But if you can get enough other people feeling aggrieved by people with, different levels of education, you can win elections. We've seen that happen now. You cannot campaign as overtly on, say, people's race, but you can say urban, but you can go against people who have an education. Scott Walker's War on Teachers, this is in some ways a continuation of that. If you go after the educated, as happened in Hungary and other countries as well, you have this so-called populist path to power, and then people learn the hard way that these populists, they didn't really want to do anything for them anyway. Just witness the big, beautiful boondoggle of a bloated budget bill that Donald Trump has right now.
I said this before the show, won't go into it in detail. When I was still in the legislature working for Dale Schultz in the state senate behind closed doors and caucus meetings, this is 12 years ago. Even then, there were select members in that caucus that had no time for anybody from UW. Oh, that's just a bunch of liberals. I don't want to hear about it. So Pat's right. This has been festering for some time. When we come back, our further discussion of the UW system. Where are the Democrats in this? Where's the leadership? And is Jay Rothman the frog or the scorpion? We'll explain on the other side. Don't go anywhere. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for a Wednesday. Trigby, Todd, Allbaugh, Zommers, and all of you as well. The Civic Media Radio Network.
Sorry for my rant, but
No, it was perfect.
Loved it.
God.
Perfect. Tony, if you're
What
watching,
is he
let's-
thinking?
let's-
I didn't see that quote. Like what?
It's here. I see if I can send it to you.
It's just it's
Here, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it this way. 'Cause you have,
Never seen Trig V rendered this
yeah,
speechless before.
You have to have a subscription to here. Let me go there.
ridiculous.
The Lazio Lounge, 1617 North
It's
Store
so
Road in
cynical.
Madison.
It's
Find
just-
specials,
it's
menus,
just-
and more at LazioLounge.com.
I'm Catherine Lake.
It's ridiculous.
but that's
And here's
what
the
they
thing.
do.
I mean, I didn't say this. I just hired a kid, right? I had two candidates who went literally to MIT. I needed a programmer. Two kids who went to MIT, and Jim Schmidt got me a kid from Eau Claire who just graduated, who's now doing some work for me. I took him over the two kids who went to MIT. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, the kids from MIT, well, maybe having IQs that were at least 40 points higher than me, had EQs that were about 80 points less.
I'm Dan
Whereas
Schaefer.
this kid,
Let's
both.
repopulate. For the last few months, Governor Tony Evers has
Oh,
said
it's just
repeatedly that he would make a
infuriating.
decision about whether or not to run for a third term.
All right, I
after
just
the
sent,
state
I
budget
just sent to you. I
process is
tried to
completed.
cut
In
and
a
paste
recent
so you don't have to do
opinion
the
column,
subscription
after
thing. The first part of the
repopulation
story
area,
with
I made the
Robin's quote, and
argument
I
that
sent
the
it to your
decision that
Viking
Evers
address.
should make should be to not seek a third term
Yep.
as Wisconsin's governor. This argument is not one of ideological differences or policy disagreements. Tony Evers has been a good governor and has served the state well. This more has to do with Evers' age. He'll be 75 years old in November 2026, and about how the Democratic Party has had a massive, inescapable problem in its unwillingness to pass the torch to the next generation. Tony Evers needs to do what so many other Democrats have struggled so mightily to do and step aside when the time is right. And after Joe Biden's catastrophic 2024, this is a conversation we need to be having, and we need to be having it now. Democrats can't keep repeating the same mistakes over and over.
So, Trivia,
It's
we're putting
time to
together
do
the
things differently. Find all of Dan's
pontoon
work at the
show. So now we've got
recombobulation area.
Kreitlow,
Hey,
hopefully you,
Wisconsin,
me,
it's
and now we have
construction
State
season,
Representative
and
Jody
Wisconsin
Emerson,
DOT wants
who's
to
on
use
board
safe
for
navigation
the
works.
pontoon
Check
show,
511
and we have an
WY.gov or
invitation
download the
from a
app for
guy who
road
grew
work
up
closures
on
your route.
Washington
Know before
Island,
you go with
graduated from the
511
smallest high school in
Go
Wisconsin,
ahead,
Washington
10
Island,
seconds.
to do a show there.
Nice.
We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control.
Just flew open the windows. Even though the rain's coming in, we could hear this song out of Speaker Robin Voss's window blaring down State Street right now. They're having the Republican Assembly caucus to find out how they're going to deal with this. Always glad when we can break a little news, which we did on Monday night after our sources confirmed that the Republicans were looking at cutting $87 million from the University of Wisconsin system budget, not from the $300 million plus request from the governor, not from current, but from current spending levels, $87 million cut. Broke that news. Appreciate the State Journal putting it in their story today. And now their great reporter, Kimberly Wethel, further reporting Speaker Robin Voss's comments today, this afternoon, saying that confirmed our reporting that, yeah, they're looking at that number, $87 million. Says, quote, it's not about cutting money. It's about getting some kind of reforms and the broken promises that we currently have. We don't have enough respect for political diversity. Heaven forbid if you're a student who's Jewish or has a different viewpoint on campus where you feel like you're either targeted or the victim of potential hate. So we want to ensure that whatever happens on campus, it's a free exchange of ideas and that people understand the basis for what the university should be, unquote. Robin Voss. And it goes on to further attacks on so-called DEI stuff, which the university has already addressed. Pat Kreitlow, host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, 6 until 8. Trygve Olsen, senior advisor at Lincoln Project. I want to get to this. Yes, Republicans, in my opinion, have not properly funded education. Yes, Robin Voss's comments on this are ridiculously bad. But where are Democrats? Tony Evers now has the majority of appointees on the Board of Regents. They're the ones that put Jay Rothman in this position, the president of the system. They have people who are paid $200,000 who are supposed to be the lobbyists for the system to the Capitol, to the legislature. And they thought by being the parable of the frog and the scorpion, where the frog gives the scorpion a ride across the river and the scorpion stings him in the middle. And the frog says, why? And the scorpion says, because it's my nature. Did Jay Rothman, is he the frog here? And you think, well, by being a more amiable frog to cut some of the DEI stuff, that somehow Robin Voss will be nice to me. Pat Kreitlow, you've worked in the building. These current iteration of MAGA Republican leadership, like Robin Voss, they're political scorpions. They're never going to change.
No, they're never going to change. This was, again, this is power. This was their path to power, and they already know. Here's something they already know, even though they don't want to admit it. If there is a fair debate, a clash of ideas, if you will, on campuses, most progressives, liberals, whatever you want to call them, feel pretty confident about their chances. You don't have to rig the game. And that includes anybody who has just literally arrived on campus, fallen off the turnip truck from, Reedsville in Manitowoc County, where my wife attended UW Eau Claire. They come off the farm. They come out of our small towns. They come from wherever. They come to get an education. They come to make them, improve their lives. And they come to debate ideas. And the number that come out of there saying, gosh, you know what we ought to do? We ought to shrink government to the size where we can drown it in the bathtub and hope that benevolent billionaires will fund our education and our health care. That number ain't zero, but it's awfully close. So, Speaker Voss, let's just have that exchange of ideas rather than you putting your thumb on the scales.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I don't disagree with you, but I want you your quicker comment and then Trigby. But what about Tony Evers, who I think is doing a fine job, but I just don't understand, Pat.
What do you want? What do you want? What can he do at this point? Is he going to stand on the floor?
Now, I mean,
no.
why wasn't he going around with Jay Rothman and select regions around this state, going to cities where these institutions are and say, this is what this means to us. Help us lobby. Why weren't they out there promoting this?
Well, because they know that the lobbying, frankly, they know who Robin Voss and the Republicans are. So I don't mean to sound cynical. I don't mean to sound cynical about this, but I think they're not the least bit surprised. And instead of working on how do we stop this thing that we can't stop, I think what they're working on now is how do we convey to people next year, you see what these guys did? You shouldn't have trusted them.
Trigby?
I
First
leave
of all,
him speechless all the time.
First of all, what I would do if I were on the Democratic side, I would get a bunch of these trucks.
Lean up a little closer to Mike, Trigby.
I would get a bunch of trucks with speakers and that can show ads, and I would literally follow people like Robin Voss around. I'd have them all over the state, literally playing "We Don't Need No Education." Literally, that would be step one. Step two would be they got to take this fight straight to people. Like, I would be holding town halls in every single university community across the state, making the point and asking people from the university to come and talk about what they're doing as it relates to the so-called free speech on campus, but also reminding people exactly who comes from those institutions like UW River Falls, UW Stevens Point, UW Superior, and the rest of them. The third thing that I'm thinking is, like, people in Wisconsin need to wake up. Right? The alternative to Jay Rothman was Jim Schmidt, who's the chancellor at Eau Claire, who actually found me the kid that I just hired. Yeah, your loss, Virginia's gain. In fact, I was Todd knows this, and Pat might too, because they read my Substack. And if you read my Substack, you'd know this. I've been out college hunting lately, not for myself, because I wasn't very good when I was in college, because I was following in the footsteps of
30
Pat,
seconds.
and so, but my daughter's going to go look at James Madison, who's the new president of that university, and they are giddy that they took him. Why? Because I can't speak for Jim, but I would suspect the fact that there seems to be a lack of commitment versus the commitment that you see in the university from Virginia to public education. Wisconsin's going to be getting its lunch packed.
Yes, so they are.
And it ain't it's gonna be bologna. It's bologna that's being put in their lunches
You
by
can always
people like
know-
Robin
Got
Voss.
all
who
his
should know
ham
better.
sandwich.
There's no bologna from 6 until 8. It is good, solid meat, newsy meat, along with some fun, packed right little mornings every morning from 6 until 9. We appreciate you, my friend.
See you
Have a
later.
great day like Masada. Trigby and I back with your phone calls on the other side. 855-752-4842 is Allbaugh. It's Trigby and Sommers in the Civic Media Radio Network. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Pat.
Oh, you are very
Thanks,
welcome.
Pat.
Yeah, so, and stay close to that microphone. I know you like to lean back in the rocking chair like that. But you gotta-
Because I'm so outraged.
God, yell at
This
those
might be the
kids.
most outrageous day that we've had.
Yell at those kids. Get off my lawn, Robin Voss. Get off my lawn. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Quick update on what's happening in food and farming news for a Wednesday. That's the word
And I
from
bet the
Janet
crazy
Kessler,
lady down the
director of
dial is
Wisconsin
all
Farm
about it.
Technology Days.
I don't
We
know.
gotta stop the woke.
Focus on large operations.
Right.
Oh my God, they're coming to
Indoctrination.
get me.
Basically, I'm old enough
It's
to,
indoctrination
I've been
of
around the block, and
communism.
I'm old enough to remember that
Trigby
Lady
Olsen's
wouldn't know
impersonation
communism if it
of
hit her
Vicky
in the
McKinnon.
head.
smaller acreage operations.
She
smaller
wouldn't know it if it hit her in the head.
operations, and we want to make sure we have something for all of them to see and witness and perhaps adapt back home.
She doesn't know the difference
Janet Keller,
between
General
Brezhnev
Manager
and
of Wisconsin Farm
Baryshnikov, for
Technology
God's
Days.
sake.
Clinton Farms in Waupaca County will host the annual event August 5th. through
We
the
don't
7th.
need
This is
no
actually the third time the
education.
Clinton family will host Wisconsin's largest outdoor agriculture event. Take a look at some of the details. WI Farm Tech Days.
Do you want to come back with that, or do you want to come back with why you got to be so mean?
Versus you. With the performance of Veltina fungicide from BASF,
Your choice,
you
baby.
can take your best results even further.
You mean for which song?
The competition
Yeah.
by an average of 7 bushels.
Are we going to keep with the? You want to keep the same song? Make
and make this your best
Trying to
season yet
think
with
of other.
Veltima fungicide from BASF.
I don't
Always
know
lead
what we
in
should go with.
favorable
I'm having a hard time thinking.
When hot weather
What do you think, Zommers? You want to continue that theme of the?
Teacher, teach. Oh, hot for teacher.
No,
No.
Protect your cows and grow your bottom line.
That would be funny.
At BioBits,
that would
bovine
be
gold
funny.
to your cow's daily ration. Bovine gold like
Teacher, teacher, can you teach me?
And keeps your breeding program in
I
check.
need to
Learn more
know.
about bovine gold at bio-vet.com.
Other education-related songs.
Dave on
How
New Berlin
about
says,
you need to
David-
calm down?
Wisconsin to
You're
what's
being
happening
so
now at the
loud.
Wisconsin Cattlemen's Association
Uh-oh,
inviting you to their
uh-oh.
summer production
No, I
tour.
don't. I don't
This
want. I
year's
don't want
gonna
it
be
to
on
calm down.
Saturday,
I don't want it to calm
28th.
down.
You want me
Feature
revved up?
farms in
Well, a little not
southeast
too much. Dave in New
Wisconsin.
Berlin just
The
said,
first
"Damn,
stop
Trigby,
will be
you damn
Adams
near blew
Land
my
and
speakers
cattle
when you got
near
too loud."
Western Indiana. A fourth
Sorry,
generation
Dave.
Family farm with about 1,500 crop acres.
We
and around
don't need
180
no.
head of cattle. They raise
Robin
primarily
Voss never
Angus,
struck me as
barley,
the kind of guy who
crossbred
is
beef, and dairy
watching
cross
or
calves.
listening to a
The
bunch
next
of Pink
stop will
Floyd,
be
but
the DeLong Company in Clinton.
it's kind of
Six
more for the
generations
boys
of
who are
agribusiness
friends
folks
with
there
swing dogs.
that are focused in on grain management. If you want to see all the details, go to wisconsincattlemen.com under their events tab. Again, the date, Saturday, June 28th. And that's a quick
Stick
update
around and
on what's
see how the
happening in food
sausage
and
is
farming
made.
news for a Wednesday.
It's how we
Farm
make
Director Dan
the
Young.
magic box shake.
Local radio for you
Exactly.
and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
On and off rain today, heavy at times, and bad thunderstorms are possible
Is this
too.
the fabulous weather?
Temperatures today
Honestly,
stay
there's a
much
lot of
cooler,
screwed
only
up
scraping the low 70s.
going on in the world
Flash
between what
flooding
happened
is
in
possible.
Minnesota.
Keep an eye
You've
on
got
those streams.
war going
As
on with
an inch of
Iran.
rainfall or more is likely. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot.
And now this.
Right now, 66 degrees.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
Mark Sommerhauser, the communications director for the Wisconsin Policy Forum, analyzing the impacts of the big brutal bill.
That number that you mentioned of nearly $15,000 per person, literally about a quarter of the state's economy.
The big
Basically
bogus
a
bill.
quarter of the state's economy.
Oh, and how
coming
about
from the
Mike
federal
Lee?
government. I'm not hearing
There-
from
that guy's
Republicans
a
in the
piece of work.
state in their biennial budget planning. Any sort of contingency plan for major disruption in federal funding coming into the state.
The award-winning Maggie Dawn Show at its new time, weekdays 4 till 6 p.m. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Todd Michaels joins us now.
I have to give a shout out to Oshkosh. It's a very underrated city.
There was also a restaurant there I really liked. I don't think it's there anymore.
Yeah, the Tallies.
So when are we doing this Pat's boat?
I don't know. We got to figure out the schedules.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Radio Network. It is now 35 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock on Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. School may be out for the summer, and if it's up to Speaker Robin Vos, for some UW campuses across the state, it may be out forever. As Joe Biden once said, I'm not joking around here. Being completely serious for a second. These cuts that the Republicans in the legislature are proposing, $87 million to the University of Wisconsin system, which we first reported on Monday night. Many thanks to the Wisconsin State Journal for giving us credit for that in their front page story today in the Wisconsin State Journal. Great article there by Kimberly Wethel. And she picks up on our reporting and now saying today that Speaker Robin Vos confirms that number that we first reported on Monday, $87 million, wants the cut. Says he claims it's not about cutting money, but rather the fact that he's salty, my words, that UW system still hasn't done enough to cut diversity, equity, and inclusion, and is not making conservative students feel comfortable, which Trygve Olson, senior advisor at Lincoln Project, a proud graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and myself are talking about now. Trygve, another story, this time in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, to give you one more piece of flavor here for the day. Scrolling down to Republican State Senator Steve Nass of Whitewater, who has said he is likely to vote against the budget plan. Get this, wants more than $87 million cut from the system's funding. Quote, frankly, Senator Nass believes the cut to the UW system should be much higher than $87 million. But the UW system piece is not a sole budget benchmark, unquote. That according to NAS spokesperson Mike Mickelson. A real piece of work that guy is. He fancies himself that he's one of those staffers, Trygve, you know him, the type I'm talking about. They like to think that they're the senator. They're the kind of staffer that the late, great Mike Ellis detested. But Mickelson sticks around because he does most of the work.
Well,
thoughts, Trygve?
I have no thoughts.
I'm
putting because I went to a woke den of indoctrination called the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, so I can't think.
And we had State Senator Keller. All right. We had State Senator Keller Royce here on Monday. We had State Representative Jody Emerson, the ranking Democratic member on the Colleges and University Committee of the Assembly here yesterday, and they confirmed that should this $87 million get taken up and passed by joint finance and then be approved by the entire legislature, that it would be devastating, most likely meaning that the 6 remaining 2-year colleges in the UW system gone, at least one 4-year campus gone, and many other major things gutted within the UW system. And some Democrats are telling me privately that they would encourage Governor Tony Evers to veto the entire budget because that would essentially be an $87 million increase over what Republicans are doing for UW system. Let's go to the phone lines, 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Let's go to Jim, listening in Brookfield on WAUK. Jim, thanks for calling. What do you got?
I think it's a very sad thing when there's our elected officials target and really go against higher education. I mean, you can't say enough for what the UW system does, not only for the state, but for the country, for the world. for research and education. But the main point I would like to say is I'd like to remind everybody how important next year's elections are, statewide assembly elections, because it would be the most wonderful thing for this state of Wisconsin if the Democrats are able to take control of the assembly after over 15 years of gerrymandered districts, and Robin Voss is delegated to minority individual and not have these controls. Because I'll tell you, gentlemen, the system is not set up for one petty, salty, vindictive individual to have control this long. He's even, vetoed things or gone against things that some of his own caucus would have supported, such as, giving health care to the pregnant moms after 2 months. Some of his own caucus would have supported that, and hence it'd be a minority because the Democrats would. But one man's vindictiveness and pettiness rules, knocks that out. The system's not set up for that. So I'm just encouraging and reminding everybody, next year, 2026, huge year for the state of Wisconsin. Get out, vote in your assembly race, and hopefully we can flip that so Mr. Voss is no longer this majority leader holding the strings like in the Godfather movies, for the detriment and the worst of the state of Wisconsin.
Thanks.
So keep it in mind. Remember, next year, get out and vote.
Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate the call. 855-752-4842. Talking about this news that we helped break on Monday night, and has been confirmed now by Speaker Robin Voss today that Republicans want to cut at least $87 million from the University of Wisconsin system budget, and that Democrats say if that gets passed, some of them at least are saying that they would encourage Tony Evers to veto the entire budget. Let's go to Jack, listening in Merrimack. Jack, thanks for calling. What say you?
Thanks for taking my call. I have a bit of experience in education. I taught for 40 plus years, public, private, and parochial schools at levels, all levels, from sixth grade to university. So I have a little background in watching this happen. First thing I'm going to say is, yeah, I'm an old guy. Okay, when I went to college, I recall that my tuition was $312.
Wow.
My son's tuition annually was $10,000. And I'm going to say that even with inflation over that long a period of time, that's essentially caused by the defunding of the UW system. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, it's not Democrats that have been doing that. It's been Republicans, and it's been over, for years. They're just trying to put, as the old song goes, one more brick in the wall between people and getting a decent education.
Yeah.
Second thing I'm going to say is that while it's not a sure thing, if you have an advanced education, one of the things that your instructors, the good ones, try to instill in you is critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to look at the lies and the misinformation and also the misdirection that's going on in this country and say, hey, that's not what the real point is. The real point is, they're trying to turn this thing into a dictatorship, mm-hmm. and a fascist one that simply gives our money away to the rich corporations and the billionaires.
Yeah.
The people need to have a bit of an education to understand what this is. That this is what's happening.
Yeah, Jack, really appreciate the call. Thank you so very much, Trigby. To Jack's point there, I know your daughter's getting ready to go off to college here. When you and I went to school, I mean, you can speak for yourself, but having the Central American Scholarship Program at the 2-year college at Richland Center, and bringing in some people that didn't look like me, didn't talk like me, had different experiences, and then going to Platteville, it made me a better person to look at myself, to challenge myself. I would have to think now as a dad, sending your daughter off to college for the first time. As a parent, you would want that. Any parent, I don't know any, at least any parents like, yeah, let's send my kid off to just a monolith and a place where everybody thinks the same.
No, I mean, the whole point of an education is to have your ideas challenged and to defend your ideas and to to become a broader person. But it kind of gets back to, I mean, do you remember when Scott Walker had this whole thing that we should get rid of liberal arts educations?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what, just ridiculous. But here's the other thing I would point out to these clowns. You know, the biggest employer, I think they're the biggest employer in the state of Wisconsin, is Epic, aren't they?
I believe.
Why is Epic in Madison, Wisconsin, Todd?
For the workforce that they get largely from UW-Madison.
Right. Talk about a bunch of people who are cutting off their own, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. It's so
And let me just interject quickly. A mutual friend of ours pointed out that the business community in this state, some of whom belong to WMC, a more conservative organization, they have been outspoken. And the business community in this state has said, dude, we want investment in the UW system. So good on those people. I just think it needs, to Pat's point or to your point.
You know who else has been outspoken is Dave Mahoney and your old boss, Dale Schultz with United Wisconsin. It's one of their core foundational platforms because they see what's going on, right? Like the center of the state understands what's happening.
855-752. Go ahead.
Evers should fight on this, and Democrats need to start taking it to the people, honestly.
Right.
Like, you don't have a lot of seats north of Highway 8. They need to be out of Madison and Milwaukee and in Green Bay and in Wausau.
Superior.
And Stevens Point, Superior, River Falls. That's where they need to be. They need to be
I'm telling you
all
right
those
now,
communities talking to the chamber.
Having had a boss that chaired this committee, the colleges, university colleges committee, I'll tell you right now that if these current Republican cuts of $87 million plus go through, if it were to take effect, Superior and or Parkside, most likely gone. 855-752-4842. Mark in Prairie du Sac. Mark, thanks for calling. Let's see.
Well, this might be a stretch, but I'd posit that DEI is actually a conservative value because it goes right in line with our Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and entitled to equality under the law. I mean, that Robin Voss, I mean, there's times I'd like to crown him like Viserys was crowned in Game of Thrones, and it is just beyond me that they're saying this kind of nonsense. In the United States, there's some liberalism that actually is a conservative value. I mean, that at the founding of our country, there's debates among some that women should have actually had the vote because Abigail Adams was advocating for that with her husband John, who did not want to give that to women. I mean, that James Madison in Federalist 42 was calling slavery a barbarous practice that he envisioned actually would have been gone in 20 years. Well, that's a liberal value there. But actually, there's liberal values that are innately conservative values in this country. Maybe I'm misstating. I mean, Trigby can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, actual equality under the law. I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion includes those little conservatives that can't take the diversity on the campus. And let's remember the anti-Semitism that they're complaining about. In my own lifetime, I remember people talking about the Jews not being welcome, and apparently now because they seem to separate Israel as being actually a Jewish state. They call that anti-Semitism to criticize Israeli policy. There's half the population of Israel that criticizes their policy toward the Palestinians.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it. Just 1 minute left here, Trig, before the break. But any comment?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, right? The single best ground politically to fight this on is they want the fight to be about culture, but the fight really needs to be about economics and chaos and pivot that into the culture and what complete balderdash ultimately this is. And I think, Democrats need to get out and fight on this. This is a fight that they want to have, but they have to frame it not from their political extreme, but from the center.
Agreed. Thank you, Trigby. Stay tuned. More Trigby after this. Going to talk about some federal issues as well. Also what's going on in Minnesota. We're going to the Allbaugh Show on Civic Media.
as Wisconsin is dropping a line in your favorite fishing spot. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Escape to paradise this summer at Chula
Yes, I
Vista
saw that.
Resort in
We'll
Wisconsin
read Heather's
Dells.
comment when we come
Spacious
back.
accommodations,
And then we'll move
perfect
on.
for families or romantic getaways. Voted top 10 best water parks in the U.S.
Pardon me.
Championship
Uh-oh,
golf,
did we get a
the
comment
longest
from
zip line in the
Jack
area,
over on
and the number
Lake
one
Mendota?
steakhouse in Wisconsin.
Did we? I don't know. Did we?
Resort all-inclusive package now. 1-800-388-4782 or visit chulavistaresort.com. Your summer paradise.
As Brian Arthur Sherman likes to say,
It's a 60-minute powered by Clean Wisconsin, your environmental voice.
I wish Jack from Lake Mendota would come on the show and defend
Me
what's
too.
happening.
Operator MISO is pushing an
I'm actually on
emergency
Jack's
plan
side on
that
this, I
discriminates
think.
against wind and solar, the two cheapest
You
ways
think?
to produce energy in our state.
Well,
Plan
I want
favors
more money for
fast-tracking
UW.
construction of gas-burning power
Right.
plants at the expense
Somebody-
of
he's
clean
gotta get
energy
paid.
projects. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission rejected a similar plan from MISO last month, but environmental groups say this one is even worse, with few guardrails to ensure fossil fuel projects are actually needed.
I just don't know why they're not, like I say, get out and see the people, Jack. The people love UW. They love talking about
Honestly,
ag
this is what
extension.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you have somebody like Jay Rothman doesn't know what his job is. His job is to be defending the UW system, and instead, I don't know what does Jay Rothman really want? Does he want to run?
I think
for
that he was brought in.
governor?
No, I don't think
Or,
so at
like,
all.
What's
I
his deal?
I think he likes living in a nice house in Madison, the president's house, and having a title. I don't know. I think he was brought in just to be a lawyer budget cutter, and like, hey, we have to cut money. And what do the heads of law firms do well? They cut things without emotion. So I think that he thought he could do that and be quote unquote fiscally responsible, and that was going to get the love of Robin and others, and he found out, wait a minute, there's actually a political agenda here. They're not actually concerned with just fiscal responsibility. Wait, they actually hate higher education?
I don't know that they hate it. They just think that
The
this
John
is.
and Gordy Show.
Mike McCabe joins us, by the way. Yes, Mike.
I don't know, Trigby. I'm not saying all of them do. Well, I don't know. I haven't been in that caucus for 12 years. But I will tell you, when Dale was in the state Senate, that there'd be a closed caucus, and Dale would put up his hand, and Fitz or somebody would call on him, and he'd say, well, I was talking to so-and-so at UW. When I really think, and he was just accrediting of where this information came from. And it wasn't like political. It was just like on economic stuff or on agriculture. And people in his own caucus would interrupt him and say, oh, Dale, that's a bunch of liberal crap. They wouldn't even let him finish. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 8 minutes before the hour of 3 o'clock. At the top of the hour, well, news, weather, and sports, and then what's worse, people who are critical of others or people who are not critical. We'll discuss. And at the bottom of the next hour, Earl Ingram Jr. will be along, and we will discuss 1 year since he and I were up at Baraboo together to celebrate the first annual Juneteenth celebration. A huge celebration happening tomorrow for Juneteenth in Milwaukee, and Earl will help us preview that. Right now, joined as we always are on Wednesday by the senior advisor of the Lincoln Project, Trygve Olsen, via StreamYard. Trygve, you just want to finish up what we were talking about the Republicans in the legislature looking at cutting the UW system budget by $87 million. By the way, a big shout out to, you know her, my younger sister, Heather. Love her to death. And she's also our unofficial production assistant here at the show. She does great work. We don't pay her a dime. And she actually legitimately helped me break this story on Monday night using some of her sources and mine. We put this together. And so a big shout out to her. But she says, I'll watch you on Facebook along with Trygve's comment about learning to think. She says, one of my favorite college professors, Murray Harr, his parents were Holocaust survivors. He challenged our thinking daily. We'd give an answer, and he'd ask us why. He forced us to dig deeper and think deeper. And he was a religion professor at a private Lutheran college out there at Augustana in South Dakota. I think that's just a great example of the best of what higher education should be, Tracy.
Yeah, 100%. I had a professor, Mort Cypress. He was chair of the Democrat Party in the 3rd District, right? Like I was working for Gunderson at the time. And he was fantastic. He challenged me. He really cared about me learning to think. And I saw Mort years later when I was asked to come and speak at the University of Wisconsin campus, Eau Claire, and he actually came, and he was so excited about what I had done with my life, and he had played a role because he challenged me and forced me to think. That's what education is supposed to be about. But the truth of the matter is, people on the extremes, and I'm finding this out now that I'm on Substack, Todd, people on both extremes, they don't want to be challenged in the least. And I knew that intuitively from studying extremism. But, because to get outside of the simplistic answer forces them to reevaluate what's causing the distress that's underneath.
Only about 4 minutes left. I want to get your thoughts, Trigby. We covered this on Monday a little bit on the show, the horrific assassination in Minnesota over the weekend of the former assembly, well, they call it the House Speaker over there in Minnesota, and her husband, and the shooting of another state senator and his wife there in Minnesota.
Yeah, just awful, and honestly, one of the things, Mike Lee had his tweet, which to his credit, he has taken down. Not to his credit, he had it up in the first place, and quite frankly, didn't seem to want to take it down until he was called out on it.
That's a Republican.
There may have been a few extremists on the left when Donald Trump was shot who said things that they shouldn't have said. I know that that's the case, but that was not United States senators on the left. In fact, they all, to the best of my knowledge, came out and condemned it. And for some of these people who are in the Senate, like Mike Lee, to be making fun of something like this it's wrong. If it's Donald Trump, it's wrong if it's somebody on the left. We don't solve our differences that way. We just don't.
100% agree. And I called out our friend Bill McCoshen on Monday as well in this program because he retweeted information on this that I know he knows to be untrue. That somehow that this assassin alleged, I have to use the word alleged assassin in Minnesota, was a Democrat. And we played the audio from the Minnesota Tribune, Leader Tribune, I believe it is, and WCCO, which interviewed the guy's roommate and closest friend and said, no, we're both Trump people, we're both Republican people. And I said, look, I'm not saying that all MAGA Republican people are bad people or anything like that. But from the other side, from conservatives, from MAGA people, to somehow perpetuate these lies that this guy was a Democrat for political gain is just sick.
Yeah, and I mean, the other side of this is, and this is true for both sides, if you think extremism is only a problem on the other side, you need to look in the mirror because you're going to find the extremist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And both sides need to take a long, hard look at it. I literally, I mean, you saw the piece. Substack has been an awakening to me because I hate, it sounds strange for somebody who's on your radio show once a week, but I don't count this. I really have tried to stay out of the public eye, but I had to get the Substack thing, right? So I got attacked by the AOC left for making the point that John Kennedy's I Have a Dream speech and Ronald Reagan's Shining City on a Hill were both part of what used to make America great. And I just got eviscerated from the left that I would say anything about Ronald Reagan and a Shining City on a Hill, which of course then people on the person that used to be on the right with me was thinking to myself, yep, this is why it was so easy for Mitch McConnell world to beat these guys, because we'd come out and say, see, they don't like America. They hate America. They don't think it's a shining city on a hill. And they don't even believe in Kennedy's I Have a Dream, Kennedy's ask not what you can do for your country. So
right. No,
Yeah,
it's,
ridiculous.
we don't have time to get into it, but Democrats
Todd.
from Wisconsin. Yeah.
You know what? I had the
What?
Chat GPT machine doing some research here on how many current UW alumni are in the state legislature.
How many?
30% are graduates of UW system
Really?
schools. Yeah, and by party affiliation, 22% of Republicans and at least 30% of Democrats.
Very interesting. Look at that. Trigby using the old AI to get things done. And that's the real Trigby. How about
Yeah,
that?
and I'm staying for this or that because I always stay through this. Or
All
that.
right, stay tuned. We'll finish up this topic and do a little what's worse. Not this or that. Don't go anywhere. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Is 92.7 WMDX Columbus. Madison's
All right, we'll take LA. If you're
news
listening, we'll
and
take
great
LA's call
conversation.
after the top of the hour. Then we got a
Civic Media
text from
Station.
Matt that has a question for Trigby as well. Trigby, what can we do about this religious extremism in America? I think it's a big problem, as is money in politics. For those watching on the stream, Trigby will impart his knowledge on us
guilty of drunk
after the
driving,
news.
but not guilty on all other charges, including a second-degree murder charge. Cheers from supporters of Reed outside of court as the verdict was being read. And here's part of that.
Operating under the influence of liquor by operating a motor vehicle, the blood alcohol level of
Oh, this is great. I guess I saw this earlier. I forgot to mention it. Some complete knucklehead broke into, now the police are confirming, the Minnesota senator that was shot and killed,
Broke into his
or the
house.
representative, somebody has burglarized their home.
Are you serious?
Yes. I mean, there's just a special place in hell for these people. It's ridiculous.
That's unbelievable.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station, the Civic Media app.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. The Joint Finance Committee finalized another piece of Republican state budget, this time the operating budget for the Department of Corrections. There are some increases, but a fraction of what was included in the governor's proposal. Republicans' plan includes about $136 million in increases for the Department of Corrections statewide over the next 2 years. That
you wanna
includes
say hi
paying
to
for
Mr.
18
Allbaugh?
new employees. Governor Tony Evers' plan would have invested $500 million. His plan included...
There she is. How you doing?
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I like the pink nails. Very nice.
Oh, thank you. I got them done for my birthday.
Oh, when was your birthday?
Somebody's turning 16.
Sweet 16.
Yeah, big birthday.
Has your dad taken you out driving yet?
Yeah, we go driving.
I love it.
Kind of become a thing.
I don't think he knows you got your pilot's license.
Oh yeah.
No, I did. I think we said congratulations on the show last time, didn't we? I don't know.
Oh,
If
yeah,
we did,
maybe
we
we
should.
did.
Yeah.
We might have.
I think so. We at least said it in the stream. I don't remember
Yeah.
if we were on the air.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I
Oh,
think
hey, did you see the
congrats.
email on the other thing?
Yeah, I did.
that's
I've
good
got.
news.
Thank you. Good to see you. Bye.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Bye bye. Yeah, I kind of like a couple of the other names better, but we can talk off the air.
All right.
I think that one was too generic. I think it needs to.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too.
I think it
Gotta
needs
say
to.
something.
Yeah, it's gotta reflect what the tone of the thing is.
We don't need no education. That
That's
should be
right.
our-
on the agenda. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson.
No, it's not going to be that.
92.7 WMDX
No,
News.
probably not.
Jair joins the Ravens. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. NFL, former Packers defensive back Jair Alexander has signed a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens worth $6 million.
Jair going to Baltimore. You can go watch him now,
$6 million.
Trigby.
Yeah, he can go pound sand.
A lot of great defensive plays, both ends. They hit in the clutch. You know, they did some clutch hitting. Suzuki's homer changed the game.
Trigby, no love for Jair.
We did some good things.
No
We didn't
love.
necessarily hit big situations.
All he has is Jordan
It's
love.
not easy being an NFL owner. You have to be a little bit petulant.
Yes. For those watching the stream, yes, it's true. Trigby Olson, one of the owners of your Green Bay Packers.
62
It is
feet
true.
hitting the scoreboard. Cubs manager Craig Counsell.
I think we should find. Is there a Thursday night game at home this year? Do we know?
Do great things. Great players do amazing things.
If there's a Thursday night game at home, I think we should figure out a way to do the show from the parking lot or somewhere of the tailgate before a Packers game.
Well, we'll have to be from one of the neighboring places. But yes, we should probably think about doing that.
See, I don't
And
know.
we should see if Mike can help hook us up as journalists.
But see, here's my thing. If we pay for parking and we set up in the bed of my truck, if we're a standalone thing, how can they stop us? It's free speech.
Who knows? It's not like we don't know people, Todd. Maybe we can get LA Tom to come out.
Yeah, see, he says, well, he and I both already have. But anyway, it says, Trigby, we are all owners that have stock. Todd, why aren't you and I owners? Oh, why aren't you an owner? I am. Oh, wow. See, so you and LA Tom are both owners. I am not. All right, I am on the outs.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that
I'm going to start a GoFundMe to buy Todd Packers stock.
Well, they're not offering it anymore. It's only a certain, once in a blue moon.
Oh, that's true. I forgot.
When they need something. Next time they want to build something, more stock.
All right, 30 seconds.
All right, here we go.
Oh.
From the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
From Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zommers on the board. It is now 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. Welcome in hour number 2 of the big program here on Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. It's a great day to be a Wisconsinite, and it is Hump Day. That's right. There's the old camel reminding us we're halfway through the week here in downtown Madison at the world headquarters. Overcast skies. A little few raindrops there, Mr. Zommers. Raindrops keep falling. Can we look out at the old Sam Davidson street cam? Is that angled correctly or not?
I believe so.
Just
a second.
Very good. We'll take a look here.
Let's
People
get her
are
set.
with their umbrellas there as they're going down through State Street. Beautiful State Street here in downtown. Oh, look at that. Oh, a little rain on the window, so it's a little blurry. But yeah, cars speeding along. Trees are very green right now. I went for a walk last night at Picnic Point on the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus. Beautiful night. Things are very green. Looks like it's an Endor, the planet of the Ewoks from Star
that's the
Wars.
right one.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like that. All right, very good. We'll check in. It'll be rainy skies, but then heating up. Going to be darn near 90 degrees by the end of the week and humid. It's going to be sultry here in the state of Wisconsin. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, our friend, our colleague, Earl Ingram Jr. is going to be joining us via StreamYard from Milwaukee, where tomorrow for Juneteenth, one of the largest Juneteenth celebrations in, I believe, the Midwest or the country is going to happen in Milwaukee tomorrow. 1 year ago, Earl and I were out at Baraboo celebrating Juneteenth out there, so Earl will be in to give us the details on that. And in just a bit, what's worse, but sticking around for just a bit of hour number 2 here, our friend and ongoing contributor, he's our guest every Wednesday, former Republican like myself, now a senior advisor with the Lincoln Project, joining us from his home in suburban Washington, D.C. via StreamYard. Trigby Olson. Trigby, appreciate you sticking around.
Todd, I have a list.
Of what?
Now I have names. Now,
hang on. Before you do this, let's set it up. In hour number 1, we talked about 2 things. A, Republicans in the legislature looking at cutting at least $87 million from the UW system budget. We were the first to report on this on Monday night. And also talked about political extremism and political violence, about the tragedy, the assassination that happened in Minnesota. So what do you got?
All right. So we've got some guy who's Hans H. that's in the state Senate. Do you know somebody named
Don't know.
Hans H? I don't know
Nope.
either. Rob Coles, Howard Markline, Patrick Teston. He graduated from Stevens Point. Andre Jacques.
Jacques.
He went to UW-Madison. He graduated in 2003. Now I'm wondering, has the place changed since then, or is it still, was it a woke den of indoctrination then? Some guy, Rob Hutton, Whitewater, Nate Gustafson, Madison, Robin Voss, Whitewater, Janelle
Branchen.
Yeah, Rob Swearingen, Shane Barnett, Alex Dahlman, and there may be more, according to it. And then you also have Brian Stile, who graduated from the UW-Madison Law School. That is just a partial list that the ChatGPT machine came up with. It also says that a John Jagler did not complete his degree from UW Parkside, but did attend.
So to your point, you have all these Republicans that were happy apparently to pay their tuition and be graduates of these fine University of Wisconsin system public universities, but now they want to cut $87 million because they say it's not good enough for other people.
Who's the president of the state Senate? Is it a Mary Fleszkowski?
Frykowski, yeah.
Oh yeah, she graduated from the University of Wisconsin River Falls with a degree in bachelor's in economics and finance. There's also a state senator, Rob Staffsholt.
I don't know.
R10 Staffsholt. He graduated from He attended both River Falls and Eau Claire.
All right. So the point is that
there's a bunch of them. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
Trigby is fired up today over this report that we were happy to and proud to first break on Monday night. The Republicans are looking to gut the UW system.
I'm very concerned, Todd.
Thank you.
There are a lot of Republicans who have been indoctrinated in communism. This could be a communist plot to undermine us, Todd.
Susan,
I'm very concerned.
Gonna write a strongly worded email. All right, let's go to the phone lines.
At least most of them graduated, which is more than Scott Walker did.
All right, let's go to the phone lines, 855-752-4842. Out to Los Angeles, California, and L.A. Tom. L.A., always a pleasure. What say you?
Yeah, guys, I have a question for you. Are Republicans in power, are they just stinky, or are they just, everything comes back to them. Either they're obsessed with bathrooms, they're obsessed with gay people, they're obsessed with lesbians. I mean, they're obsessed with anything that has to do with sexuality. Is that because they've been so repressed over the years, and they, when they went to college, they didn't really meet anybody outside of their own little circle, or what? Because honestly, I mean, I'm to the point where I think they should ask Donald Trump a simple question. Donald Trump, are you a closeted gay man? Because you definitely love men.
There seems to be an obsession.
Strong men.
There seems to be an obsession. Trigby?
I will say my buddy Stuart Stevens and fellow Lincoln Project colleague, he often gets going about, and there is a lot of truth to this. I had never met so many gay men in my life until I went out and worked on Capitol Hill. Republican offices were full of closeted gay men, and it's kind of a strange. It was a strange phenomenon back then, Todd, and you and I've talked about this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
to your point, LA,
my thing is whatever floats your boat, right? Like I'm very libertarian, as you know. So
I do
but
too,
like
but they keep talking about DEI and everything. That it's
I know.
Why don't they just come out of the closet already instead of being self-hating gay closeted men?
No, you're right. I mean, to your previous point,
legislating.
When I worked in the Capitol and also in DC, Trigby's right. There were all kinds, particularly of gay closeted men. I was one of them for a while. And here's a sad fact for Todd. In all my years, I can honestly tell you I never hooked up with a closeted Republican. Think of the opportunities missed, in all those years. But I mean, you're right. Stuart Stevens writes in one of his books that it's one of the dirty. It was all a lie. that to L.A. Tom's point, that they're so obsessed with anti-gay stuff, and either so many of the legislators or their staff are themselves gay and living in the closet. It's sick. I mean, I can honestly say I was never hypocritical about it. I was never anti-gay living in the closet back in the day. But I think he has a good point, Trigby.
Well, you know who else makes that point all the time is my buddy Tim Miller, right? Like, so Tim is gay, and he makes that point in his book, right? Like, from that perspective of how many, and I think in your case, and I think in Tim's case, I don't want to put words in his mouth, like, the truth of the matter is, and regardless of what your truth is, one of the things I've learned in life is a lot of bad things happen when people don't feel comfortable living their truths, and a lot of people get hurt. And
Agree.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. I totally agree with you guys.
Who's John Jett? Is that Cam?
Yeah.
Cam says, well, Grindr didn't crash at the RNC for no reason. That's true. That's actually true. Our friend Kristen did a whole segment on the fact that Grindr was going nuts at the RNC in Milwaukee. All right, it's 15. We want to quickly, let's get to that question, Zombers, that was on Matt in Middleton. If Trivy can answer it quickly here. Matt in Middleton was talking about political extremism. Trigby, what can we do about this religious extremism in America? I think it's a big problem, as is money in politics.
Yeah, so, well, first thing that you can do is you can subscribe to my Substack, because just about every day, although today I didn't write, I have been putting out 3 things that people can do to stand up and fight for democracy and fight extremism. And I've also broken down what I've learned about extremism from around the world, which ironically, in some cases, got attacked viciously by extremists. But that I just kind of found that funny. Sort of like me having an opinion on how Jordan Love plays quarterback, right? If I knew what I was talking about, I'd probably be playing quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. But what do we have to do? The first thing that we have to do is everybody needs to think about what can they personally contribute to the cause. And the cause has to be, it's not about you, it's about the people who've been succumbing to the extremism. And I say this in many ways. Donald Trump is sort of, whether they realize it or not, and I probably take a lot of flack for this, there's a lot of Americans who are in an abusive relationship with Donald Trump because he isn't ultimately serving their interests, but they're sticking with him. It's not about you. Like, if you've ever dealt with somebody who's in an abusive relationship, attacking the abuser isn't what helps. You got to ask them questions and lead them to find in themselves that they're being abused. And so a lot of it is about how do we engage with people, not by preaching at them, but by getting them to think with their conscious part of their brain about the cognitive dissonance that exists. And I mean, one example is the tariffs. 73% of the 10% of jobs in Wisconsin under threat from tariffs, the 74% of those people voted for Donald Trump. You have to be asking them about that. Same thing with this thing about attacking the UW system, Yeah,
well said.
If you have somebody in your community who's a nurse or like these legislators who went to the UW system, ask them questions. Were you indoctrinated, Robin? And if so, here's my question, Robin. If so, why didn't you do something about it? Because quite frankly, the path you chose to go down has had more ability to impact from college forward the UW system than anybody, with the exception of probably Tommy Thompson. So why did you allow this to happen, Robin?
Robin Voss, Trigby Olsen.
Come on the show, Robin. It's been a long time. We could have, and honestly, I will be nice. Scott, I'll be nice.
Being a butter popcorn and a throwdown.
Yeah,
all right,
I will be nice. I can't guarantee you
3.
Todd will be
Time
nice.
once
given
again
that he's
for
being
what's
snippy.
worse. Let's go.
This or that, this or that. Then of course, the choice is yours. You can
All right, time once again for what's worse. No prize money involved, nothing to give away, just your opportunity to have your voice heard across all 11 stations on the Civic Media Ready Network. Going to give you the question, take your answers on the other side of the break. What's worse? The category today, Tricky. What's worse? People who are critical of others or people who are not critical of others. People who are critical of others people who are not critical of others. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842, or you can text us on the Civic Media app. 45 seconds, Trigby. What's worse?
People who are not critical of themselves.
Well, that's not part of the category.
Well, it's this or that, but I'm going
it's
this
what's
or
worse.
that or that. Which is worse?
Or what's worse, or the other thing?
Yeah. Well, honestly, the crack team. People. Well, can I think about it through the break and have an answer?
You can absolutely think about it through the break. You're going to think about it. Zomer's going to think about it. We're going to pop up some Robin Voss popcorn here, put some extra butter on, since he's a little slick right now up there at the state capitol. Come back, answer the question, call in, text, people who are critical of others or people who are not critical of others. What's worse? 855-752-4842. Your calls, your texts on the other side. It's the Allbaugh Show for a Wednesday across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network.
This is a hard one today, Todd.
It is. Makes you think.
Cameron Appleton has another great comment. Trigby, next time you're around these people who you suspect are closeted gay men, play the Grinder notification sound and see if they reach for their phones.
I don't even know what the Grinder is. What is?
Well, I can record it for you and let you know.
Grinder is like basically
it's a quote unquote gay dating app, but it's largely
not dating.
It's largely a hookup app.
They have such things for hookup apps.
Trigby, where have you been?
I live under a rock. It really is true. Unlike my dad, my sister met her husband on eHarmony, and my dad went all over River Falls telling everybody that she found her husband on eBay, and he didn't. He didn't. No, on eBay. And I got the great thing about being from River Falls is I got a call from somebody and they said, hey, just so you know, we ran into your mom and dad down at the cafe, and your dad is telling people that Jersey met her husband on eBay.
And he didn't correct him?
They're like, eBay? Yeah. He didn't. No, they just let him go.
Oh, okay. eBay. Well, I hope she got a good price.
Yeah. When I called my sister and said that, she already knew. And she's like, you talked to him. So I had to call him up. And I was like, Dad, what in the blue HE double hockey sticks are you doing?
That's awesome.
The award-winning Megan Dawn Show at its new time, weekdays.
He's like, it's all so complicated these days. I don't know. eBay? What, isn't it eBay? And I'm like, no, Dad, it's not eBay. Well, what is the eBay? I'm like, eBay is where you buy junk that other people are selling.
Here we go.
Put it on that beat. Aye, monster on the beat. Debo, any rap. He a free throw, man down. Call her ambulance, tell him breathe, bro. Nella new to the cross, he walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni here? Trying to see Compton.
Back to the Scott Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network, 22 past the hour of 3 o'clock. You dial up Snoop, Zommers?
No, it's Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, because it's a diss track. So if you're talking about being critical of people, a diss track is...
It sounded a lot like Snoop to me.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
I don't listen to it. I listen to virtually no rap. So, that shows what an idiot I am. 855-752-4842. The What's Worse category today. People who are critical of others or people who are not critical of others. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. As Trigby said, this is a category today that might make people think a little bit. A little bit self-reflective, perhaps. I don't know. 855-752-4842. 855-742-4842. John, listening on WMDX, our old friend John, says, got to be critical of others when necessary to start conversation. and hold them accountable for their words and actions, all while creating a buzz to inform others. Wish the media would do more of this 24/7. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Jim, listening in Brookfield at WAUK, says, for the sake of my marriage, I have to say people who are not critical of others are worse. Otherwise, my wonderful wife will be critical of my answer. Jim from Brookfield. Appreciate that, Jim. 855-752-4842. Let's go to the phone lines. Jimmy, listening on WMDX in Madison. People who are critical of others or people who are not critical of others? Jimmy, what's worse?
Oh, definitely people who are critical of others. But I also like them to be qualified. You know, like, for instance, there was a time I remember when everybody that ran for the Tea Party barely had a college education, but they all ran and criticized and wanted to tear stuff down. But if you're qualified, I can take the criticism.
Right.
If you have experience, I can take the criticism. But watching people who have no interest in governing, watching people who have no interest in making things good for the American people, it's just destructive and it's crazy.
Yeah.
I can remember when Republicans were talking about being the party of family, but it seems like, and this was a few years back, but it seemed like every other month a Republican was either getting caught in the bathroom, they were getting caught with pages, it's just the hypocrisy of it all. So, you know, and it's just like listening to Donald Trump. You know he doesn't know. But yet all of the media, it seems, news outlets, talking heads, they are wasting hundreds of thousands of precious hours talking about this. And he absolutely means nothing to us because it's just grifting. And all of his friends see that that's a powerful thing to do and you can get away with it.
Right.
And they're doing it.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate the call. 855-752.
Jimmy has the best radio voice I've ever heard.
It was a great radio voice. Jimmy, is Jimmy still there? Jimmy, have you done radio before? Jimmy is not there. All right. Well, Jimmy, if you're listening,
too bad.
Trigby and I vote you as the best radio voice of the day, including me, who's paid to do this on radio. Well said, Jimmy. 855-752-4842. Brian, listening on WGBW in beautiful Green Bay. We were just up there last week. Great crew up there at GBW, says, I refuse to be critical of this question. All right. Cam, listening in Appleton. My wife's boyfriend is pretty critical. Not a fan. Len, listening in Madison on WMDX. People who are not critical of others may be worse for society as a whole.
That's my stance.
All
Just
right.
just because that I'm jumping in now for my answer because Len worded it better than I was going to. Yeah, people who are not critical of others may be worse for society as a whole because that's how we end up with people like Robin Voss in charge, where if you don't look at what he's saying and say, that doesn't add up, then you just let terrible things happen.
Right. Heather, listening in Eau Claire on Facebook, says, in this day and age, I need a caveat that these critical thoughts are based on facts. But honestly, the combo of being Gen X and a woman of a certain age, i.e. menopause, I don't have time for milquetoasty people. So those who are not critical are worse. Don't ask me if you don't want to know.
I agree.
Trigby, people who are critical of others or people who are not critical of others, what's worse?
I guess not critical.
People who are not critical of others.
Yeah,
All right.
I still think people who aren't critical of themselves are the worst. But
well, yeah, that's probably true. I'm just looking here. David New Berlin says people who are critical of others are worse. I'm not entirely confident that people that are critical of others are able to acknowledge their own shortcomings. There you
Totally
go,
fair.
Trigby. See?
yeah, that's a good point.
See, that's kind of what Trigby was saying there. Scott, listening in Madison on WMDX, says people who are not critical of others end up voting for people like Trump. So, yeah, lack of critical thinking is worse. Greg in beautiful Genesee Depot on WAUK says people who are not critical of other people are worse. Kurt in Madison, the thing just skipped there. Kurt Madison says, what's worse when we say others, which I think includes politicians, then it would clearly be those who do not criticize. All right.
Kim in Appleton also says, critical is fine if critical people can admit when they are wrong. Also, Todd, your camera is slanted and you're slouching and you have cookie dust in your beard.
I don't have cookie dust in my beard.
I know. He's just joking around about criticizing.
Well, the camera is, we bought the camera at Walmart, and it just sits on top of a thing, and it's kind of cockeyed. It's like the seamstress that couldn't menstruate. She was cockeyed. Anyway, Trigby, so there we go. There's another edition of What's Worse. We appreciate everybody for playing along. That was a lot of fun. Trigby, thanks for hanging around and for bringing us your insight as always. You'll be watching the Packers. On next, our friend Earl Ingram Jr., who's a big Detroit Lions fan. So I'm worried. I think the Lions could give us the Packers some trouble this year. They're good.
Whatever, Todd.
Wow. No respect for the Lions. We'll find out what Earl Ingram thinks about that, and more importantly, what's happening in Milwaukee for Juneteenth. Don't go anywhere. It's the Allbaugh Show across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network.
All right, Mr. Allbaugh, I gotta go.
Thank you.
You got a problem? You got Earl, and I got a plane to catch.
All right, very good. See, I got a great guest coming up. I don't need you anymore, Trigby. Right, adios. Be gone.
Bye.
All right, see you later. Bye. There he is, Earl Ingram Jr. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Good afternoon to you. How are you?
I'm doing well now that you're here. I'm just sorry that we're not out in Baraboo doing a show together, hiking around the Baraboo Bluffs.
Yeah, man, that would have been nice. That was a nice journey for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll reminisce a little bit about that. I think it's always good just to remind people of the foundations of Juneteenth and what that really means, and then you can talk to us a little bit about what's happening with Milwaukee, with the Juneteenth celebration there, and anything else that's on your mind.
All right, man, I'm here.
How would you like to be? Do you want to be introduced as the host of the podcast, or just Earl the Great, Earl the Detroit Lions fan? What's your pleasure?
Yeah, just Earl Ingram of Civic Media will do.
Okay.
I'll have a look at your closing markets after this. Giving back. It's at the heart of the Wisconsin farmer. Supporting the backbones of our community. That's why the Wisconsin Soybean Marketing Board invests in soy foam for our firefighters. Soy foam TF1122 is the first and only firefighting foam green screen certified at the gold level. As a PFAS-free firefighting foam, it's safe for you and the environment. A safe future for your community. Thanks to your soy checkoff. Learn more at
Oh, Todd, we need to record the...
Oh yeah, sorry. I gotta record my promo, Earl, because we got people coming in the studio for Maggie as soon as we're done. So
hey man, do what you have to do, man.
Thank you so very much. All right, Mr. Zommers. All right. And tomorrow, hang on 1 second. Oh yeah, Dan Schaefer. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, join us next time. Our old friend Dan Schaefer, political editor of Civic Media and founder of the Recombobulation Area, will be here to help us recombobulate. Join us.
$33.5 up 2. New crop corn closed up 5 1/4 at $4.44. Cash beans closed at $10.74 3/4, up 3/4. New crop beans closed at $10.68 1/4, up 1/2. July wheat closed at $5.74 1/4, up 25 1/4. July Class 3 milk contract is down 29 cents and is trading at $17.67 a hundredweight. August milk is trading down 40 cents at $18.21 a hundredweight. 40-pound block cheese closed at $1.69, down 6 1/2 cents. AA butter closed at $2.52 3/4, down 5 cents. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Kylie Allen.
Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
On and off rain today, heavy at
Yes,
times.
Dave in New
and
Berlin.
thunderstorms
Today
are
was a
possible,
one-take
too.
Todd.
High temperatures today stay much cooler,
rarity.
only scraping the low 70s. Flash flooding is possible, and keep an eye on those streams, as around an inch of rainfall or more is likely. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Right now, 66 degrees.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Todd Michaels joins us now.
I have to give a shout out to Oshkosh. It's a very underrated city.
There was also a restaurant there I really liked. I don't think it's there anymore.
Yeah, Vitelli's was great. I may have gone to like a prom dinner there or something like that
sweet.
Back in my day too, Pete.
A little calzone before you tear it up in the dance floor.
There's nothing better than wearing a tuxedo and a little calzone in your cummerbund. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app. The John and Gordy Show.
Mike McCabe joins us, by the way.
Yes, Mike, you know about the Savannah bananas.
Yeah.
The announcer calls them bananas.
Bananas. They have all kinds of antics.
They have,
it's
they have
great.
bright yellow uniforms.
Yes, they do.
And they do performance dances at home base.
Or in the
players
field.
are out there like
About
cheerleaders.
25
And even the umpires get involved.
Yeah, they do.
Welcome back to the Todd Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is now 35 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock here, and whenever you hear that music, you know that our friend, our colleague, Civic Media's own Earl Ingram Jr. cannot be far behind. And I'm pleased to announce, such is the case today, we welcome via StreamYard from the Milwaukee area, Mr. Earl Ingram, joining us live. Earl, thanks so much for coming on.
I'm honored and privileged to have the opportunity to share time with you once again.
The privilege and honor is ours, Earl. Which we were talking before we came on the air about a year ago. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. A year ago on Juneteenth, you and I were up in Baraboo, Wisconsin, in southwest Wisconsin, for their first annual celebration, as it turns out. On a day similar, at least in Madison, like it a little drizzly out here. But boy, what a great day that was, Earl, to see that community of southwest Wisconsin come together to celebrate Juneteenth. And then I would say, at least personally for me, equally as fun was just spending some time hanging out with you. We went around Devil's Lake State Park, had a meal together, and it was just a great day of sharing and hanging out.
You know, man, what it really was, you know, we live in the same state, and people can be so far away and not really get to know one another. And that opportunity we got to share with one another was precious. And it just goes to show that, you know, as big as the earth is, you know, we don't have to stay so separated. And you get a chance to meet each other in different environments, and that's always good. That's always positive. And if we can do that more on a global scale, we wouldn't be, you know, facing the kind of things that we face as human beings.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I want to offer you an apology on the air, Earl, because we had this great meal. We hung out last year, and we said we need to do this more often. And I have been remiss in making this happen more often. And I want to apologize to you and tell you we got to have these conversations on the air and off, but particularly on the air more often. That's going to be my goal moving forward, if you're willing to do it, because of what you just said. The more that we talk to one another, even though we may have come from different places or have differences, I think that's the best medicine, or at least a large part of the medicine, to heal what's going on in this country and this state right now.
You know, if we don't communicate one with the other, then we stay estranged. And you know, we're looking at the things that are going on in the world right now, and at the root of most of those is misunderstanding of other human beings. And the answer certainly can't be because we don't communicate one with the other then we rely on destroying one another. I mean, that's barbaric at its core. But you know, I would be honored, and you know, thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zommers, let's make sure that you hold me accountable. Let's do that. On the lighter side, quickly, we had our friend Trygve Olsen on, who likes to brag about being one of the millions of Green Bay Packer owners. And I brought up the fact, of course, that you're a Detroit fan, and he dissed a little bit. I'm going to say I'm worried about the Lions, Earl, this year.
Well, it's strange you say that. I had a pretty long conversation with the grave digger this morning.
Gilbert Brown, who he knows very well.
Absolutely. We are preparing to resurrect the Gilbert Brown football camp in the city of Milwaukee, which we did for 16 years prior to COVID. And so COVID shut that down. Well, on July 7th, we'll kick off our 16th year of that free football camp. Gilbert Brown, the gravedigger himself, makes that happen, makes that possible, and thousands of young boys and girls will get an opportunity who don't know anything about Gilbert Brown, but get a chance to be engaged in a 3-day camp that we'll be, sponsoring.
And that's one of the many things I love about you and about what you've done in the Milwaukee area, because you're just one of those guys, Earl, that says, here's something that needs to be done. Let's just do it. You get things done in the Milwaukee area, in your community, and I just thank you for that.
Well, man, at the root of it is what I want. I grew up in the 1960s, as a young boy, and I was experiencing community at its best. And I am who I am because of that community. It's safe. It certainly was together, and it kind of made me who I am. And so children today don't have that opportunity. Technology and all sorts of other things take them away from those kinds of things. And in the years that I have left, my goal has been, along with others, to do everything possible for us to make sure that they have a better opportunity at life. And I think that's kind of like passing the baton is the verbiage that's used a lot, but it clearly is. And I always tell people in my community that unless we pull together as a community and make sure that those who come after us have a better opportunity in life, then the future is not very bright.
I couldn't agree with you more, Earl. B, he's much too modest. These phrases like, whatever time I have left, like he's some kind of an old guy. I'm telling you, we were up at the Baraboo Bluffs last year, and anybody's gone to Devil's Lake State Park, you have these granite steps that are built in, and we're hiking up, and Earl's about, 15, almost 20 years older than me, and Todd's going to, and Earl's just like, come on, man, come on. I mean, you're in fantastic shape, or you're in fighter shape.
Well, for a guy that will soon be 71,
wow.
People can't believe that I'm that age. I'll tell you, I don't feel it. I don't feel a day older than 70.
Well, you're beating the butt of a 55-year-old. I'll tell you that much. First of all, before we get to Juneteenth, Earl, first Jim in Brookfield listening in on WAUK says, "Hi, Earl. Where can I get a woke hat like the one you're wearing?" For those not watching on the stream, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Earl's wearing this great hat that says woke. Is that a custom-made piece, Earl? Are you launching a new line of hats, of clothing, an Earl Ingram Jr. line?
Well, it is kind of custom-made, and I had it made at the height of the discussion on woke, because I know the true definition of woke before somebody changed it. And so the definition of woke, I don't care whether it's Rosé's Thesaurus or, Webster or whichever dictionary you look in, there's already been a definition for woke. It's perceptive and somebody who, basically is aware. And even though people have changed the definition of it, I'm very comfortable in making sure that people see me with my woke hat. And it's always good to hear from Jim from Brookfield. So, hey, Jim, it's always good to hear from you, my friend.
Absolutely. Earl, I think it's always good. We have these celebrations for a reason, and that is to commemorate things. I think it's always good just to take a step back, as our friend Matt Flynn likes to say. He likes to say, Matt Flynn, you're not woke if you don't know history. You're not woke unless and until you know history. I think he's right about that. So give us a little bit of history, Earl Ingram, on Juneteenth and the origins and what this really means.
Well, I can tell you that I never knew. I wasn't taught anything about Juneteenth Day when I was in school.
Really?
And absolutely not.
Wow.
And, there's what's so ironic about it is that we're facing a time right now where the history is being erased. We've got a president of the United States who thinks that all of that history should be wiped away and people should never know. But Juneteenth Day, June 19th, 1865, when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce the end of slavery and, the day that blacks were freed. Now, most people would say, well, why do you guys need to have, and I've heard this said, a separate day, 1776, the birth of American Independence Day, is our celebration, and that's the day that all of us, should celebrate. Why do you have to have a separate day? Well, that day, 1776, the birth of, America's independence didn't include black people. And so black people weren't set free at that point in time. So it was, again, 1865 when the Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by then President Abraham Lincoln on July 1st, 1863, I believe it was. And so it said that all enslaved people in Confederate territory were then free. But 2 years later, that information still hadn't reached Texas, Galveston, Texas, and people were still being enslaved. So it was at that point in time that finally the Union soldiers were able to make it down to Texas and make sure that people were made aware that they were no longer slaves. 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and celebrations began at that point in time. And, there's 250,000 or so black people in America who were enslaved at that point in time. And so they were, for the first time in their lives, declared free.
What I find, and thank you for that history lesson, number one. Number two, maybe the most fascinating thing you said so far, at least on that part there, was at the beginning of it. I mean, I'm, as you know, I grew up in Southwest Wisconsin, a town of 5,000 people. We literally had one black family in our school district, and I went to grade school, high school in the 70s and 80s, so I never was taught about Juneteenth. But to hear you as a black person growing up and saying that you never heard about it growing up in school either. That's A, fascinating, and B, just so sad that we're not, there's so much opportunity to do better, to teach kids where they came from and why, so that everybody knows the history, so we can appreciate, because we all got a journey, Earl. Doesn't matter where we came from. We all got a journey, and I think we need to do more to respect each other's journey.
Well, I think more than anything else, this history needs to be taught to all children. And not just to black children, because
100%.
As long as people aren't made aware, can you imagine? I think sometimes about my ancestors, and what they went through, and to finally, hear Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation and all of those things. And finally be freed of one of the worst chapters in the history of mankind, and yet still not be free, is a calumny. And I'll just say this, the past is the past, and people will say, that is better left in the past. But my response to that always is, if you listen to Jewish people, they'll say, never forget the Holocaust. And yet people are telling people of color that happened such a long time ago. We need to get beyond that. Why are you bringing that up? Well, again, it was a part of the history of our nation, and it should never be forgotten.
Stay tuned more with Earl Ingram Jr. on the other side. Talk a little Juneteenth and other things here as well. Don't go anywhere. It's Earl. It's Todd. It's the Civic Media Radio Network all across the state of Wisconsin. Back after this. Great stuff, Earl. Really appreciate this.
Well, like I said, man, thanks for the invitation. I just found out today from Gilbert Brown that next year when we kick off our camp, we'll have, what is that Yahoo's name? Oh, Brett Favre. He'll be joining us.
Really? Really? Yeah. Oh, my gosh. That should be quite the off-the-record conversation.
Yeah. Brett Favre is going to join us at the camp. It's a 3-day camp, so we do two separate sessions. In the morning, we'll go with kids from 6 to 12, and 6 to 12-year-olds, boys and girls, and we'll run that from 8 o'clock to noon, and then we'll take a 2-hour break, and then from 2 o'clock until 6, we'll take those 14 to 18. And the amazing thing about what happens during that time is you watch Gilbert Brown when he's working with the babies, he's a big teddy bear.
Right.
But when the other guys walk on the field, I never will forget a guy walks on and he had a do-rag on and something else, and Gilbert Brown said, "See that brick wall over there?" And the guy said, "Yeah. If you don't pull that do-rag off your head, I'm going to make a new doorway with you." Gilbert's a funny guy, man.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's
That's
zero
awesome.
tolerance for younger, well, I would say those 14 to 18.
That's amazing. But as you've talked about so many times in your show, young people, I don't care where you come from, young people need strong leadership, particularly from men.
Well, 4 years ago, I created Voices of the Elders, a nonprofit. And so I put together an 8-point, what is the blueprint for your life? And so we work with the boys. I organize what in my community is grandparents. We refer to them as pawpaws. And so we work with boys 10 to 13 years old because it's my belief that it's better and easier to guide children while they're children than it is to try to turn them around once they've headed down the wrong path. So
100%.
Yeah, we got to deal with kids when they're kids.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, 30 seconds.
All right, thank you. Back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network, where it is now 8 minutes before the hour, the top of the hour. The top of the hour at 4 o'clock. It's going to be ABC or CBS News, depending upon which of our great stations you're listening to. A little weather update, Brittany Merlot. Drizzly today, and then it's going to heat up by the end of the week. 90 degrees or close to that. Maybe heated indexes near 100 by the end of the weekend. And then our great sports reporter, Mike Clemens, will be in with a sports update. And then the Maggie Dawn Show across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network from 4 until 6, followed by Pete Schwaba and Nightlight from 6 until 8. And then after that, it's our friend Robert Pilot with Native Roots Radio. Right now being joined by Earl Ingram Jr. here of Civic Media, talking a little Juneteenth. But Earl, I want to pick up on something before we move to tomorrow's Milwaukee celebration. you were speaking so well, eloquently about the need for education of our young people, just talking about the lack of teaching about Juneteenth in our schools. But Robert Pilot has brought up as well that we don't do enough in our school systems and teaching our youth about the true, a lot of revisionism these days on the history of Native Americans in this country. And I just think that we all function better. We were talking off the air, the importance of getting to kids, I don't care whether it's behavioral or education or whatever, when they're young through programs like yours, because we become better adults, and it's a lot better to invest in kids when they're young than try to turn around bad behavior as they get old.
And a lot cheaper.
Right.
And I would agree with the gentleman, the Native American, who
Robert Pilot, yeah.
If you know their history, you know the history, the fact that our nation has erased what transpired in this country is really shameful. And what's to be gained in the long run by not telling that history? You know, the Native Americans had some ways and some things that they did and that they understood about the beauty of this land to always leave it better. After they left, when they would come to a place, they were very much concerned about making sure that once I left this place is in a better position than it was before I got here. And I think our nation could learn a lot from that. And so that history needs to be, again, resurrected.
100%. Talk to us a little bit, Earl. Juneteenth proper is tomorrow. I know you couldn't come on tomorrow because you're going to be busy. Tell us a little bit about the activities down in the great city of Milwaukee tomorrow, please.
So I'll be at I'll start probably at about 7:00, and I'll be there till at least 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Juneteenth Day, there'll be 30 to 40,000 people.
Wow.
Inside of an 8 to 10 block radius. If you can wrap your arms around the majesty of having 30 to 40,000 people gathered inside of that 10 block radius for the majority of the day. Milwaukee is the largest Juneteenth festival in the country. Milwaukee is one of the oldest Juneteenth festivals in the country. I remember at 16 years old, going to my first Juneteenth Day celebration. I think I might have missed one, but over 51 years I've been there. And it is a wonderful, wonderful time where, you know, people who sometimes have a difficult time, you know, getting together and doing things collectively. It is a day that all of that is set aside. And our children and the elders get to interact, which we don't do enough of. And on that particular day, all the rest of the garbage and junk is swept under the rug, and people understand the importance of what this is all about.
Yeah. 2 minutes left, Earl Ingram. What have I not asked you yet? Do you want to make sure that people across the state know about Juneteenth or about the activities tomorrow?
Well, that people should understand that this, for those who say, you know, why do you need a special holiday? Well, because of the things that transpired in this country. And so when you talk about the 4th of July and why can't we all just celebrate the 4th of July? Because we weren't all equal on that day. And to some extent, we're still not that today. But Juneteenth Day is an opportunity, again, for my community to accept one another, to know about our riches. Part of what Juneteenth Day is about is teaching the history to our children and bringing the ancestors back to life and having the elders interact with the children. And so if we could do that every day, it would certainly transform and change our communities by having the elders and the young people. Even though we've become further apart, you know, together, even if for only this one day.
Really appreciate you, Earl. Appreciate all your work down in the Milwaukee area. Excited to hear that you and Gilbert Brown are restarting this camp for young people, both boys and girls in the Milwaukee area. You're doing more than your part to make this state great, and we appreciate you and appreciate all the work you continue to do here at Civic Media. Thank you, my friend, for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation, man. Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Thank you very much. Earl Ingram Jr.,
Bye-bye.
everybody. My pleasure. Thank you, Earl. Also, many thanks as well, not only Earl, to Pat Kreitlow, host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, every morning from 6 until 8, who was on the program in the first hour, and to Trygve Olson, senior advisor at the Lincoln Project. Also, thanks to Aaron Zommers, a great producer as well, and of course to Earl Ingram Jr. for being here on the show, and all of you for listening. Stay tuned. Maggie Dawn is next. This is Todd reminding you that whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. We'll see you tomorrow and recombobulate with Dan Schaefer on tomorrow's show. Until then, make it a great day.
Keep banging on your drum. Keep banging on, and your day will come. Keep banging on your drum, and they will hear you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Adios.